Can your attention very briefly? Thank you. Welcome to yet another, the last Net Impact Bangkok Professional Chapter monthly meeting, the last one of the year. We're very happy to have Billy Marinelli in the house, an extremely passionate man. He's passionate about food, passionate about his seafood and his oysters. He tells me what he has to say might be somewhat controversial, so we want you to participate if you can, please. So Billy's been known as the Oyster King, a term coined in Hong Kong, which has been followed him around the world as the undisputed expert on oysters. He founded a company that is now the largest distributor of half-shell oysters. He's also been instrumental in the development of many other products, including farm-raised mussels, pink scallops, Hawaiian limu, Alaskan sea scallops, and Manila clams. Billy graduated from Southampton College, New York, with a BS in marine biology. He now has 2 restaurants in Bangkok, the Oyster Bar and the Seafood Bar. So perhaps he can tell you a little bit more about that. So without further ado, a warm welcome, please, to Billy.
Thanks for having me here today. Is this for the recording of that? Okay. I read a book about a year ago called The World Without Fish by Mark Polanski. And it turned out to be a children's book. And it broke down the science on overfishing and pollution and the death of our oceans is what we're really talking about here. It broke down the science in such simplistic terms that even I can understand it. And it sent me on a mission. And my mission is to educate consumers about choices that we need to start making in our grocery stores, in our restaurants, when we go out to eat. We're getting used to making choices about a lot of things these days. With internet service provider you want to use, whether it's Twitter or Facebook, gasohol versus ethanol versus benzene, organic vegetables versus non-organic. We're making a lot of choices about food. And changes that I'm going to be talking about here do not come from the top. These are not changes that you'll expect companies to make because they're responsible. Okay, they have shareholders to be responsible for it too. These changes that we're talking about here have to come from the bottom up, the consumer. If we start making choices necessary, corporations then will follow us. This has become very evident in the United States, where we no longer serve swordfish in menus. Very few restaurants serve farm-raised salmon at all. Snowfish, you don't see Chilean sea bass anywhere anymore. And this is all started with the consumers. Our lobster program is very successful, our halibut program, our fisheries in the United States, for the most part, is doing very well because it's managed by people, the fishermen and consumers. So, The World Without Fish. I think we have time to read this, so let's go forward. The way it started is that we started becoming good at fishing around the 1800s when the steam engine was introduced into fishing trawlers. Our fishing methods became more efficient, higher catches, greater food abundance, lower market prices, lower profits, need for greater efficiency. And this is how it all started. We started getting good catching fish, and we stopped fishing. And I like to use that as an expression that when I say to the chefs when they want to order something, I say, look, my fishermen, they go fishing, not catching. We're not fishing anymore, we're catching. And that's the problem. Ghost nets. These are nets that one reason or another get cut off from the boat, and they essentially continue fishing. Now these nets can get up to 10 miles long, okay, gill nets. And they continue fishing until they become so saturated with dead fish, they sink to the bottom. It can take years. Meanwhile, they keep fishing. This is what trawlers catch. Now you can see a lot of this fish here is in very, very bad shape. It's beat up, it's bruised, it's cut, it's mangled. This ain't going to show up at Village Market or Tops. This is going into fish meal, fish food. Our fishing methods are essentially creating more damage than just taking the fish out of the water. We're destroying the environment necessary to produce more fish. And we're catching fish in a lot of cases that haven't even had a chance to reproduce yet. Case in point, how many people here have heard of John Dory? All right? They still have it on menus over here. Well, the scientists, that's like number one on what not to eat in a restaurant. The scientists have discovered it takes John Dory 20 years to reproduce. We're catching the adults before they had a chance to make babies, which is why we're serving Oreo Dory and Silver Dory and Joey Dory and all other kinds of Dories and calling it John Dory. There is no more John Dory out there. We start catching something before we understand the biology behind the species, like snowfish or Chilean sea bass, as it should be called, or Patagonia toothfish, as the scientists call it. Gill nets. They kill all kinds of marine mammals, and they get separated from the boats, like I said, and become ghost nets. Here's a real nice example of overfishing. That is a trawl that's pulled up. This fish is not usable for anything except cat food, dog food, and fish meal. Here's my favorite, shark fin. Huge controversy because it's so steeped in tradition and culture. They tried banning it in San Francisco. Chinese community up in arms, racist, how can you do this? It's so steeped in the culture. The Ritz-Carlton Hong Kong is trying to go sustainable, 75% of their fish by the year 2014. They had 10 weddings booked before they were even open. They all requested shark fin. It's so part of the culture that it's hard for us to eliminate. These are choices consumers have to make. All right. What are the signs that our oceans are dying? Is it happening? Is this conjecture? You know, are we kind of just making this up? All right. I started noticing this a few years ago when I was doing some diving in Pattaya. There was nothing. There was no fish. There was nothing out there except, you recognize these? Sea urchins. Hoi min. Hoi min. Men. Hoi min. Oh boy. That's some type of hoi. These are like the garbage men of the oceans, okay? They live off of anything that's dead, dying, falls to the bottom. They're all over the place, which means that things are dying enough to feed them. And that's why they're proliferating so much. There's a lot of death occurring in the waters where these are found. And this is happening all over the world. But the Gulf of Thailand is a really good example of an ocean that is close to being dead. Okay? Second thing, how many people go swimming in the Hua Hin anymore? Yeah, pretty much. If you don't want to get stung by one of these things. There have been blooms of jellyfish around the world. China, this is Japan. Hua Hin, Gulf of Thailand is having a major problem with jellyfish. They have warning signs now at the hotels down there. Beware of the jellyfish. These are like the urchins. They live on algae. They live on the smallest particles in the ocean. The things that the fish used to eat that are no longer there. There's nothing else to eat these creatures. The baby shrimp, the baby crabs, the phytoplankton. There's nothing there anymore to eat these things. So the jellyfish, they go to town. All right? And they literally go to, I mean, they're having a feast over here. So what happens next? This is going to be happening soon here. When there's nothing left to eat the phytoplankton, there's no more fish, there's no more urchins, there's no more jellyfish, the algae goes crazy. And we have blooms, algal blooms. How many people have heard of red tide? Okay, that's an algal bloom. And we're understanding more and more about what's causing this increasing frequency of algae blooms around the world, but they are happening around the world. United States, Canada, Norway, Japan, China. We're going to start seeing this too soon down the Gulf. There's nothing left to eat the seaweed. And the seaweed grows. That's an algae bloom off the coast of Norway. The seaweed grows and grows and grows until it uses up all the oxygen and the water. And then you have this. Plummet. One of the signs of a dying ocean. No more oxygen left in this water. The algae ate it all up. Massive, massive fish kills. These are crustaceans. What this is a sign of is ocean acidification, which is what we're seeing right now. Now this is a very old map, okay? And I can pretty much tell you, you can knock 50 years off this map because we're in this state right now in the oceans. You see this yellow band over here where you start getting acidic water, okay? This is where everything just dies. Over here, over there, dead, okay? Right now off the coast of Washington and northern Oregon, you see this yellow band getting kind of this color. We can't grow oysters anymore. We've got a huge problem growing oysters. The oceans have become so acidified that we can't grow shells. I can't grow baby oysters. So we're looking at Hawaii right now. We're looking at, other farms around Lopez Island seems to have some good water. But we are in this zone now. And it's the year 2012, maybe 13, I don't remember. So you can knock about 50, 60 years off of this. They predict within 25 to 50 years, there will be no more fish in the ocean. That's what the scientists predict. Okay, this is published repeatedly because of what we're doing, overfishing, pollution, and we're causing global warming. This is what it is. We can't. The oceans can no longer absorb the CO2, so we're excavating the effects of our carbon emissions by killing off our oceans. If you go home with just one thing today, okay, with just one, I can do this, I can do this. It's not to eat farm-raised salmon anymore. That's probably the strongest point I want to make today. This is the #1 reason for overfishing that I just found out about maybe a couple of years ago. You would think farming salmon, oh, good. It's on every buffet in town. It's on MK. It's in Fuji. They serving it in pad thai on the street now. It's everywhere. What a good thing, right? Farming salmon, yeah. What I didn't know is that it takes 4 kilos of fish to make 1 kilo of farm-raised salmon. We are sweeping the ocean for fish to feed the farm-raised salmon. And the farm-raised salmon have been so genetically mutated now that when they get out in the wild and mate with wild salmon, the wild salmon cannot find where to go and spawn and never spawn again. So by farming the salmon, we're clearing out our oceans of fish that eat the algae, that keep the sea urchin populations down and the jellyfish down, okay? So we're taking the fish away that eats the seaweed to grow cheap farm-raised salmon. And that's why it's on every menu in town, from the cheapest restaurant to the most expensive hotel. You're looking at 200 baht a kilo for farm-raised salmon versus 2,000 baht a kilo for the wild salmon I serve. Pretty easy decision to make if you're an F&B purchaser. So Franklin salmon. There's how salmon's grown, one of the ways, okay? Very, very high densities. And we're pouring in antibiotics because just like a city, when people live close together, they get sick a lot. We can't get these guys sick, okay? One gets sick, they all get sick. So pouring in antibiotics, we're pouring in the fish meal, we're pouring in growth hormones. It takes 1 year to get a farm-raised salmon to go from a fry to something marketable. 1 year. It takes 3 to 5 for a wild salmon to reach the same size. That's because we're feeding these guys, we're pumping steroids into them, but they're not eating fish. They're not eating the wild shrimp and the crabs, the crustaceans that they normally eat to get that nice red color. So we got to add food coloring to that too. That's why the farm-raised salmon is so universally red. It's a food coloring. If it wasn't for that, they would look like pale watermelon. Okay? Think of the waste that's being produced by fish at this density. All those nutrients being poured into the water, which contribute to the algae blooms from the fish that can't eat them because they're no longer there. It's a vicious circle. All right? Look how many fish. That's from down below one of the farm, the pens. There's a wild salmon. Look how many visitors he has. Look at the size of him. He's got plenty of room to move around, doesn't get all bruised and stuff. You can eat lots of food. You can eat the little fish, you can eat the algae, you can eat shrimp, you can eat anchovies. He's a healthy animal there. And something that we don't understand about this fish, that they live in the ocean for 3 to 5 years, and they always go back home to spawn. They find that river. After swimming around the oceans for 3 to 5 years, they found the very river where they were born. We have no idea how it's done. And that's how we're able to protect this fishery. We limit the times of the year that we fish for them, and we only use certain gear that gives the fish a fighting chance to make it upstream and have babies, and we leave the females alone. That's how we're able to keep wild salmon sustainable. Okay? Look how happy that fish is. Happy fish. And they'll swim upstream. They've been doing nothing but eating for 3 to 5 years. Me, it's more like 20. And they're storing their fat. Because once they hit that fresh water, they stop eating. Okay? And they gotta swim upstream. Some of these streams are 500–600 kilometers long. The bellies on these things are huge on these fish. Full of omega-3 fatty acids, some of the healthiest protein, animal protein on the planet. Salmon. Okay? And they swim upstairs, upstream. They change their morphology. They get bright red. Their meat starts falling off the bone. They lay their eggs and they die, and they feed the bears. The bears love the salmon after they spawn. So the wild animals get to eat the dead salmon, and on it goes. So what is sustainable fishing? Sustainable fishing, one scientist says, is like fine art. I know it when I see it. I see it. It's going back to fishing methods that give the fish a fighting chance to survive and to make choices of what we catch, when we catch it, what size we catch it at, how we fish for it. How is it that people have been using fish as protein for, tens of thousands of years? The Chinese, it goes back 10,000 years before Christ. They were farming fish, collecting it from the ocean and bringing it inland and feeding the farmers with this. All right? How do we go from something that's sustaining mankind for tens of thousands of years to being 25 to 50 years away from having no more. We have to go back to traditional fishing methods, where the fish have a fighting chance to survive. Fisherman puts a hook in the water. He don't catch something, he goes and moves someplace else. If he don't catch something, he goes and moves someplace else. If he doesn't catch anything, he becomes a taxi driver. All right? He catches the red snapper, he lands the red snapper. He catches barramundi, he lands the barramundi. He takes care of that fish, he gets top dollar for it in the marketplace, improving his condition of life. Who are fishermen? They're not driving Mercedes-Benz unless they're on a factory trawler that's sweeping the ocean for the fish to feed the farm-raised salmon. Usually it's the lower class people that are fishermen that we are trying to educate on proper fish handling techniques so I can pay them more for their fish. All right, so we're improving their economic living conditions by teaching them to fish sustainably, making them continue to fish sustainably, but take better care of the fish. Probably the best example of this are the Hawaiians. Has anyone been to Hawaii here? Fish everywhere. Beautiful fish, not cheap. It's revered like God. When you go to the auction in Hawaii, it's like entering a church. You don't speak. It's all done with hands at the auction. And they respect the fish because it's provided for them for thousands of years. And they'll never run out of it. They ran out of seaweed. They love it. They started growing it. It's easy. It's a weed. Put a little bit in the water, it grows. Poor thing is to harvest it before it uses up all the oxygen. But otherwise, seaweed is an amazing form of protein. We just need things out there to eat it, to keep it under control. We should all be eating it. It should be one of the major sources of protein in our diets. Sustainable fishing. Yeah, this guy is definitely sustainable. He'll go out, he'll catch maybe 6 fish, 10 fish. Come back and sell it to me for a couple of bucks a kilo. Go home with $20, $30 in his pocket. This guy probably made $100 a month before he met me in Bali. He's providing for his family now. His kids are going to school. He's got a color TV. We're going to start seeing more and more of this. This is already happening in the United States. We've got a couple of major certifications. One's the Marine Stewardship Council. My favorite is is the Monterey Bay Aquarium Baywatch or Seafood Watch, other than the fact that they're using a yellowfin tuna, which is on the endangered list. So it's kind of ironic that's the logo they picked. But we're just like you see like USDA certified meat, and we're inspecting our chickens and our meat and this and that. We're going to start seeing more and more of this packaging. But unfortunately, not everyone's on the same page when it comes to sustainable fishing. If you're a country that your economics depends on catching and selling this fish, you're more likely to wear rose-colored glasses when certifying a fishery sustainable. So it's not 100% yet. We don't have it down yet to where it's like an independent body, or, I mean, think about it. How can you tell people in North Africa they can't catch bluefin tuna anymore? Because we caught it all. These are fishermen that need it to sustain themselves. Their livelihood, the economics of the country. Now we're telling them you can't catch tuna anymore because there's no more tuna to catch. What are you talking about? There's still a few left out there. When there's no more, we'll find something else. How do you tell these people after we did what we did? So there's a lot of controversy around this issue, and that's why I say if we can go home with just one action today, that'd be to stop eating farm-raised salmon. Just think about it. Call the F&B director over. What? I got kids. Why are you serving this fish here? What are my kids going to be eating 25 years from now? Do you know it takes 4 kilos of wild fish to give you 1 kilo of farm-raised salmon? Get it off the buffet. It's disgusting. Do that a couple of times. You get to eat for free, too, after you do that. Trust me, okay? That's probably the biggest step we can make, is start being more aware about our seafood, where it's from, how it's caught. But frankly, salmon, let's get that picture back up there again. I want that picture. Franken salmon is probably the most evil, okay? The Monterey Baywatch has put together it's mainly based in the United States, but it pretty much says it all. That's your snowfish, right there, top of the list. Orange roughy, farm salmon, sharks, all right? Those are probably the worst. The Chilean sea bass issue, the reason why it's called snowfish in Thailand is so that it gets under the radar at customs and the FDA here. The FDA here has got a very lazy attitude about enforcing endangered species bans and dangerous food items coming into Thailand. There's still Korean oysters coming into Thailand that have been banned from Hong Kong, Taiwan, Canada, and the United States. They're still coming here. They kind of look the other way because they don't know what snowfish is. But snowfish is Chilean sea bass that most likely has been poached, caught illegally. Okay, because the Australians, the Indonesians, the Chileans, where the snowfish comes from, they're deep islands off in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, kind of equidistant between these three countries. Very deep water, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 meters down. They're trying to protect the fisheries because they take a long time for the fish to grow the Patagonian toothfish. So they have these boats that go like 40 miles an hour that go out, grab a couple of tons of snowfish or Patagonian toothfish, and then the Navy vessels can't keep up with them. And they head to Singapore. They head to usually Singapore, Indonesia. They chop them all up, cut them into trunks, red-lipped snowfish, send them up to Thailand because we are willing to look the other way over here. So between the farm-raised salmon and the snowfish, those would be two big steps we can take. The other thing is asking questions. How is this fish caught? When you get a wine list, you're looking at all those descriptions, right? People should be aware of how their fish is being caught. The server can't tell you or tell you where it's from. Just don't go there. Order the pork or chicken if you're Muslim. Anyhow, I'm sure there's going to be some questions. I think I've said enough, and let's take it from there.
Thank you. This is fantastic. I'm wondering if you can speak a little to the quotas for farming for catching wild salmon in the Pacific Northwest of the United States and their agreement with Canada and the indigenous peoples.
The indigenous people in Washington, I'm not sure about Canada. I know the indigenous people in Washington own wild salmon fishery, and they're the only ones allowed to catch the salmon when it's coming in, okay, to the mouths of the river. And they use traditional fishing methods, like picking them up by hand to catch the salmon. In the ocean, they have quotas. You're going out fishing for salmon in the ocean, okay? They have quotas on the boats, and they have seasons. They'll open up, the scientists will go out and look at the stocks and say, okay, you California salmon fishermen, you could fish this much this year. I think it was something like 7 years, California fishery just shut down. So they have openings, closings, they have quotas. I don't know between Canada and and the United States, because most of the fish I buy is from Alaska. That's where the longest rivers are. Taku River, Fraser River, Yukon Gold, Copper River. These are all Alaska fisheries. And the BC fisheries, Fraser River, I don't do that much with. And we buy a lot from the Lummi Indians in the San Juan Islands. And man, they're just going out with nets and scooping up fish. And salmon to them, again, is almost a religious thing. They catch enough, it's hard to believe, but they catch enough to feed their family, to feed their tribe, make a little bit of money, they can it, they sell it fresh to people like me, and they're not interested in going out and putting a big gill net across the mouth of the river, which is what, we'd probably do, and catch them all. There used to be salmon in every river in the North Atlantic, including the Thames in London. I mean, it's pretty amazing, man, the resource that we lost. There is no longer any wild Atlantic salmon. It's all gone. We either polluted the streams, or we dammed them, so they couldn't get upstream to spawn. We either polluted the streams with pulp waste for the mills, dammed them, or just caught every damn last fish. All right? So there is no Atlantic. I got my wife very upset. She likes farmed salmon. There is no more wild Atlantic salmon. What's left now is what's in the Pacific Northwest. And believe you me, we're all focusing on it, and it's extremely expensive.
Yeah, it is.
But I'm sorry I couldn't answer more. I don't know the link between the two countries.
Is this a global industry? Is this a global industry or local or regional? Like, these foods are available anywhere in the world, these fish?
You mean this is supposed to here?
Yeah, well, the industry itself, because that last question about salmon from the northwest of the U.S., would anybody here be concerned about that? Is it available in Thailand?
Well, I ship it in when it's in season, and I serve it at my restaurant. The issue, the problem is global, okay? Most of these fish are found around the world, like red snapper, okay? A lot of fish that are coming out of Europe right now, they're all being farmed because they've already depleted the stocks to the point where they can no longer return. Cod. Cod is past its point of return in the Atlantic. So people in the Pacific saw what happened in the Atlantic, and so Canada, the United States got together and have very strict quotas on Pacific cod, which is why I believe, yes, why you see it on the approved list, but you'll see cod, Atlantic, on the not approved list. So this is a global.
Okay, so what's available fish maybe in Thailand is not necessarily from Southeast Asia. It could come from anywhere in the world. The fish I ordered at a restaurant in Thailand might have been sourced from anywhere in the world originally.
Yes, yeah. I mean, this fish here from France, from Scotland, from Tasmania, from Australia, from Hawaii, from the Pacific Northwest. Most of the fish you're eating at a Thai restaurant is pakapom, which is one of the most sustainable farmed fish out there. Just so happens that way. I mean, these fish farmers here are not dummies. They realize that Barramundi, which is what a pakapom is, it is a domesticated barramundi that they train to raise in fresh water. They realize that we talk about salmon 4 kilos to 1 kilo. Barramundi is almost 1 to 1. It's like 1.1, 1.2 to 1. An extremely efficient fish, which is why they're growing it all over the place here in Southeast Asia. Cambodia, Thailand, Vietnam. You know, barramundi, man, is like everywhere. And that's what you're seeing mostly in the Thai restaurants, whether it's filet or in the brazier, okay? Now, if you're eating at a European-style restaurant, you might be eating fish from Australia, New Zealand, Europe, America, you'll usually know that by the price point. Imported fish is fairly expensive. The other fish that is very, very becoming very popular. You are seeing a lot of it here in Bangkok. It's called basa. The type of catfish. You know those fish in the klongs that are by the temples? We feed them bread, right? That's basa.
They eat a loaf.
They eat anything. You don't want to know what they'll eat, okay? I don't eat those fish. But they're now being reared, professionally in cement tanks. They clean the tanks. They feed them, good fish meal. And they are almost, again, a 1-to-1 ratio. So these are the fish that are going to be seen a lot of in the near future, especially in Southeast Asia. When you go to the United States, I'm from Seattle, we're eating a lot of halibut. We're eating a lot of salmon when it's in season, sablefish, rock cod, sardines, trout. You notice that clams, mussels, and oysters, farm raised, they're on the best choices list. We have access to so much seafood in the United States, coming from Hawaii, coming from the Atlantic coast, coming from the Gulf of Mexico, coming from the Pacific Northwest. We have, and we're making our choices. You won't see swordfish on the menu in New York City or LA or anywhere. You won't see Chilean sea bass out there anymore. And unless you're eating at a diner or something, you won't see farmed salmon. So this is a global problem, and it's a global industry.
I was going to ask about the farm-raised. I was going to ask about farm-raised salmon. Is there any way to change the farming of salmon to make it sustainable, using a different fish meal or different practices? Because as it shows that the Arctic char is sustainably farmed, and so is the cobia. Can you do
what makes these things sustainably farmed? Okay, is their conversion of food into body mass, and it just so happens that salmon is one of the worst. Salmon, tuna, these are horrible converters. It's like a cow. It's got to eat, this much grass to grow, okay? What? Well, Australia they do. They still do in Australia. Not in Australia, they still have the pasteurized cows. We're doing them in Lopez Island. I mean, we don't grow a lot of cows there. We get a lot of money from the restaurants in Seattle. But there are people out there doing grass-fed still, very, very small scale, usually in polyculture. Pigs, cows, chickens, pigs, cows, chickens. The problem with the salmon is we pick the fish like the striped bass, the sea bass we see from France, Lucania, or whatever it's called, the French sea bass. It's being farmed in Israel, it's being farmed in North Africa, it's being farmed all over the place because there's no more wild fish. It's not a good converter. It's what we want. We want that fish. It's a traditional holiday fish served in Europe for the Christmas, New Year's, holidays. You gotta have sea bass, striped bass, sea bass, okay? It's thousands of years worth of history, that fish. Gotta have it. So they grow it. But it's not an efficient converter of energy. Salmon's not, tuna's not, sea bass is not, cobia is. The best ones are barramundi, basa. Then you start getting into fish like, catfish in the United States. They'll eat anything. But they convert it to body mass efficiently. That's the key. So is there any way to farm salmon sustainably? No. It's the nature of the species.
Actually, my understanding of salmon fish farming, like where in Norway, salmon is very important. They're very advanced in their farming practice, and they have improved very much the method. And my understanding is that nowadays the production is almost 1-to-1. 1 kilo of salmon equal 1 point, a little bit of anchovies or whatever fish is used to feed them. So my understanding was that, yeah, they're quite advanced. But that's Norway, and of course also price is different.
Norway's got another problem, okay? This might be true. I haven't read it yet. I'm talking about what I've read, and this might be true. But Norway's got another problem. Their salmon, farm-raised salmon, now this you can look up. You can Google it. The farm-raised salmon out of Norway contains 25% more PCBs than is acceptable by the FDA because of where it's being farmed, what it's eating, you know, runoff from the land, and it's in one of the books, and the chemicals that they're feeding it, okay, and the fact that they're feeding it, you know, fish that has some of this in there too, and they store it. We're not allowed to sell Norwegian salmon in the United States. It's been banned, and they have a whole separate set of problems over there in Norway. They were probably the first to really do things on a massive scale, and now Chile's jumped to the game. Canadians on the Atlantic coast have, but they got there. It could be true, the one-to-one thing. It's not what I've read from a biologist, but it's a totally separate, you know, can of worms over there.
And then another question. So you said this graph is based on the US, because I see tilapia US farm is best choice and tilapia Asia farm to avoid. But I guess here in Asia, tilapia perhaps could be a good solution in terms of
Like I said,
farming.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you got to look at who's doing this.
Yeah,
you know, this is a Monterey Bay aquarium. Okay, they get money from companies in the United States to support the seafood watch. Sometimes you got to take this stuff with, why is it good in the U.S. and why is it bad in Asia?
Well,
Yes, it's an excellent question, and that's why I'm very suspicious about a lot of this stuff.
The answer probably is the climate footprint of exporting Asian farmed tilapia into the US, so why not using the local farmed one? But I think, yeah.
I always, whenever I look at something like this, I always, you know, keep my tongue, you know, just take it with a grain of salt, because everyone has an agenda. You know, when you talk about something like this, and, you know, fishing and industries, and we all have an agenda. I have an agenda, okay? You know, I want people to stop eating farm salmon. You know, that's my agenda. So I can't get it off my head, you know. Countries and companies obviously like, you know, WC Grace, Coca-Cola, they don't want me to be pointing this up. You know, they advertise on a lot of these farm-raised salmon ads about the benefits of eating salmon. They make it free fatty acids. Unfortunately, they're not found in the farm salmon. They're only found in the wild salmon. You know, so we all have an agenda, and you got to kind of take the stuff, you know, a little bit of a grain of salt, and read. And read. This gentleman has a book by Paul Greenberg, right? The Fish on Your Plate. All right, I started off with 4 fish. Omnivore Dilemma. I'm reading everything by Mark Polensky right now. And they got bibliographies in the back that are, you know, they're quoting papers, scientific papers. They really explore what I just spent 30 minutes on over the course of a book. And in this one book, World Without Fish, by Mark Polensky, it's a children's book. I ordered it without knowing that. I'm so glad I did. Because it broke the science down into such basic units. You know, I mean, it was very easy to read. Any more questions?
Just a little something to share with all of you. I believe WWF has come up with a table of this sort for Southeast Asia. It's on their website, and I think I remember seeing it about a couple of years ago. And WWF?
World Wildlife Foundation. Yeah, fun, and I believe there was something I had. Yes, I believe. So they are, I mean, everyone's, this ain't the last year you'll be hearing about this, that's for sure. You know, as that graph starts getting worse and worse, and, you know, storms like Sandy, you know, kick us in the butt, you know, things start happening on a global level that we can, you know, particularly trace to, you know, climate change. And now we're saying, we can understand why the climate's changing now, because the oceans are getting more acidified. So yes, this is a topic that will start catching on. I'm hoping that to push it along a little bit here today.
What about river fish globally, in terms of what's sustainable or not stocked, or is it dangerous to stock fish?
Trout, farmed. The most problem with river fish is our rivers are fairly polluted. That's our biggest challenge with fish coming from the river. So we're farming trout, we're farming catfish now. They're very efficient feeders. Trout is not the most popular fish in the world, and unless you're in Europe, where they're more familiar with river fish, I don't know that much about river fish. I do know that in the United States, most of our rivers, it's unsuitable to eat the seafood coming out of it. Okay, and that we have special land-based farms with cement tanks to grow our trout and our catfish, and they clean them every day, like they do up at the World Project. They're growing sturgeon up there, and those sturgeon are being raised in ponds that you can see clear down to the bottom. They move the sturgeon every day with trapdoors, and they clean them out. And we're going to have farm-raised sturgeon. Well, we actually do now in Thailand from the World Project, but it's very expensive. But that would be what I'd be worried about river fish.
And do those have caviar?
Huh?
Do those have caviar?
Not yet. It takes about, I want to say 20 years for a sturgeon to produce caviar. I think the World Project has got fish now that are about 7 years old, and that's how they're able to start selling some. You know, they're about yay big. And it takes big fish to grow caviar. They're doing in California and China, they have sturgeons that are, you know, producing caviar. And that's on the imported wild. They don't have it on the best choices farmed, because there isn't that much of it being farmed right now. But they do have it on the imported wild avoid list. But you will start seeing more and more farm-raised caviar. I'm bringing some in for the holidays from California, Sacramento. All right, any more questions?
I'm just a bit curious. I think from what I know, I heard that the reason that they initiated the farm-raised salmon is because the catching for the wild catch salmon in the sea is quite low. That's why they initiated the farm-raised salmon. And then the salmon is actually one of the fish that can produce quite a big quantity comparing to Barramundi or those kind of fish that you can catch in Thailand, right? So what would be the alternative fish? And also salmon is very popular around the world. So what would be the alternative fish that the world population can consume besides salmon? Because Barramundi, because I'm in the seafood industry, and I know that Barramundi in Thailand can actually serve for domestic market only. We don't have enough quantity to export to other countries. So what would be, and the world population is growing, right? So what would be the alternative fish that could...
Seaweed. Let me answer your question by asking you one. Why do you think salmon is so popular? Cheap? It's cheap. And I don't know about delicious, but if you ever had wild salmon next to a piece of farm raised,
Oh my God.
yeah. I had stopped eating salmon at one point when I was a kid because I couldn't stand it. Salmon became, you're right, yes. They started growing salmon because there's only so much wild salmon we're willing to catch out there, all right? And it's an amazing fish. There's nothing like it, okay? But I think halibut's like that too. Me, I mean, just about anything that comes from the ocean, I think is so much better than any cow, okay? Salmon, there wasn't enough because we polluted all the rivers and all the places where they were coming from, the Atlantic coast, in Europe, Canada, New York, man. New York used to have a huge salmon run. You know how many rivers there are around New York, Delaware, New Jersey? I mean, man, we had salmon coming out of our ears. We had cod coming out of our ears, fish and chips. An entire country lived on cod, fish and chips. The Vikings never would have discovered America if it wasn't for cod. Okay, cod, it was so ubiquitous. They used to say you'd be able to walk across the Atlantic Ocean on the cod that was there. Very, very popular fish. Down in Australia, it is barramundi, okay? So salmon was everywhere. Indians ate it, the Indians worshipped, we all ate it. You know, back in the 1700s, the 1600s, everyone was eating salmon. It's delicious fish. Then we ran out. There's no more. Hey, we better start growing this stuff, man. There's a lot of money there. But what happened is rather than, you know, growing it in very small quantities, keeping the price high, keeping it sustainable, big companies got into it. The price of salmon, like I mentioned, costs a restaurant 200 baht a kilo, man, for filet on Norwegian salmon. Scottish salmon, a little bit more. Tasmanian, a little bit more. They're small projects, okay? But the reason why salmon was popular is because it used to be all over the world. Northern hemisphere, not southern hemisphere, okay? And then there's no more. And yes, that's why we started growing it. But we didn't think about the biology, okay, of growing salmon, of catching orange roughy, of catching Chilean sea bass, okay, of growing striped bass. We got the Indonesians and the Japanese in Bali right now growing yellowfin tuna. They're spending millions of dollars rather than growing more seaweed, more tilapia, more basa, more barramundi. They're messing around with yellowfin tuna down there, okay? The alternative to farming salmon is to eat fish that fishermen catch. To eat fish that are grown sustainably, that have good yields, like barramundi, tilapia. Yes, the Thailand production of barramundi is pretty much going to the local market because that's pretty much all the fish we have here. We have that, we have palmwood, we have farm shrimp. We don't really see too much other fish unless you go out to the Burma Banks, which is very expensive. That tuna, that mahi, that fish the Thai people catch off of the Burma Banks is exported. You're not going to see that at Ruin Tong or Taling Ping or something like that. You'll see farm-raised salmon, but you won't see any wild fish at these restaurants. So that's our choice. These are our choices. Eat fish that's caught hook and line, harpoon, caught sustainably. Eat fish that is farmed, that has a good yield. Again, barramundi, basa, catfish, okay, tilapia.
Does a typical restaurant know the source of the fish it buys, or is it just buying from a distributor who's getting it generically from some wholesale?
Typical restaurant looks at a price on an invoice, unfortunately.
So they don't know.
Most, I mean,
not going to follow up.
most.
Yeah, not just an upscale, but a typical. If the upscale would know, you pay. But you know, how do we know what we're getting if the
That's where we got to start making. That's where we got to start making the stink. This gentleman over here convinces local 7-Eleven not to serve plastic bags anymore. You know, I mean, that's why we're doing this. You know, it's going to take this group plus the next 1,000 groups of people like this to impact a marketplace. But it's happened before. It's happened before. It happened in the United States. It's happened before. It's happened in Europe, okay? And it just takes more of this activity and making choices, and asking questions, going into a 5-star hotel and demanding, you know, why are you serving this fish? You'll get a free meal out of it, and eventually they'll get it through their brains. You know, maybe we'll show some corporate responsibility over here, and we'll do a fundraiser, you know, for the World Wildlife Foundation, and educating our customers about the steps we're taking to serve sustainable seafood here. We'll put the barramundi on the menu and the tilapia and seaweed everywhere. I work with 3 types of seaweed at my restaurant. Okay, there isn't anything more sustainable than seaweed, and it's got 90% protein by weight. If you want to eat something good for you, and there's only one soup on a menu here in Thailand that has salai in it, the one with the pork and the tofu, right? I can't think of another soup here that's got salai in it. And it's such a great source of protein. Another question?
Do you educate your staff Do you educate your staff to be able to explain your guests how, where and how the fish are, or where they're from? Because I have an example. It's not a fish, but with a piece of meat. And we asked the staff, and she came back a while after and said, it comes from Food Lane. And in a way, if I eat in a higher level restaurant, which is actually was, that I just think that there should be a little bit better explanation than that.
It comes from gourmet, Paragon gourmet.
This is my wife, Rudy, over here, by the way. She manages the oyster bar. I pretty much stay at the seafood bar, so we can get along. Tilak, would you want to answer that? Are we educating our staff?
Yes, we do.
Do we do a lot of training in our restaurant?
Yes, we do a lot of training.
Yes.
So if you go to our restaurant, my staff not able to tell you your question, you eat for free.
Next to almost next to your oyster, so that was fine.
Put it through the ringer. Put it through the ringer. We do a briefing every night. It's very important, and this is why we have to start, you know, shaking things up when we go out to eat a little bit. All right. The steak doesn't come from Food Land. This salmon was farm raised. You shouldn't be serving it. Where is this turbo from? You know, where is this from? Where is that from? What do you mean you don't know? You're serving it to me. I mean, I can get sick from eating something that you don't know where it's from.
Or if the waitress cannot answer your question, tell them to go get chef. I want to talk to your chef.
Where is your restaurant?
The oyster bar is Naratiwa 24, right down Tonglosi over here. Near Chatsworth. The seafood bar is Sukhumvit 16. Yeah, I have the seafood bar because it's more seafood. She runs the oyster bar, which is very tiny and more of a kind of a casual oyster bar restaurant. At my restaurant, I'm usually there, and you know we do training every night. And when a plate is put down in front of you, you know they'll tell you what's on the plate. You know, when we do a platter, they tell you where everything comes from. And this is where it starts, you know, is people asking, you know, raw oysters. I mean, I can't believe there's places out there that serve raw oysters and they don't know where they come from. Raw oysters, I want to know where my raw oysters come from. I mean, medium raw, you know, like sushi, discount sushi. I don't want sushi to be inexpensive. I want it to be really expensive. You know, we need to start asking these questions. And they'll catch on, just like it did 7-Eleven. You know, because it's easy stuff to grasp once you've heard it. It's just getting the word out.
You just mentioned what was my question. Can you comment on the sushi industry and the rise in popularity of sushi around the world? I mean, I have some experience in the industry, but when I first came to Asia, I went to Japan 22 years ago, and obviously it's been around in Japan for years, but I've seen it just become incredibly popular in the last 22 years in Asia, and incredibly cheaper as well. And can you comment on that related to how that's contributing to these problems?
Well, you're asking two questions. Why has it become popular? I think it's because it's food that you eat in your hands. It's very sexy. Like oysters. Why oysters become so popular recently? It's something you eat in your hands. It's sexy. It's fun. Eating sushi is fun. It's sexy. Tastes good. You know, the fish in a good sushi restaurant is, I mean, it's amazing. You know, I mean, and that's why I think it's become popular. How is it becoming cheaper? Look at what they're serving you when you go to a Fuji. It's farm-raised salmon. It's gassed tuna. Okay, and the way you can tell when tuna's been gassed is it has a little bit of a copper or a metallic flavor to it. Okay, it's not sweet like real good maguro, ahi, or skipjack tuna. Tuna should be sweet, but if you go to a Fuji or one of the places in the MBKs or whatever, and you eat the red thing there, I mean, you get a little bit of a bitter taste, which is why they don't put mayonnaise and, you know, things on it, you know.
Gas for what?
Carbon dioxide, CO2. When you cut yourself, what color is your blood?
Red.
What color is it after 15 minutes? When you cut tuna, it's red. As soon as the oxygen hits it, it starts turning brown. So we cut the tuna, not me, but the people who do that, cut the tuna in a CO2 booth. It's a booth that's got CO2 being pumped into it. And if the cutters, you know, if they're worried about the cutter's health, he's wearing a mask, you know. And the screen goes all the way down. But they cut the tuna in a booth with CO2 so that no oxygen gets to the flesh, it doesn't turn the meat brown. And that's what they do with poor quality tuna, bruised tuna. It'll take brown tuna and make it bright red. You can almost sometimes tell from the color. You know, if the color is like real kind of fake looking, that's really bad tuna. And you'll taste it. So that's why they're doing tuna cheap. Farm-raised salmon is almost free. Then they'll sell you Tobiko eggs, which are very inexpensive, okay? Hokugai, surf clam. They're not going to be serving you otoro, chutoro, good Thai snapper from Japan. They're serving you local snapper. And you'll see, you know, like in a place like Fuji, or I hate to keep saying Fuji, but it's one example that I know very well. You'll see the bloodline on the fish, and the bloodline is kind of brown. And then you go to a place like, I guess I got Tensui. I mean, there are great Japanese restaurants here, but at Tensui, you can be spending 9,000 baht, 2 people. Okay? Good! It's raw. I want it to be expensive. When you go to Tokyo and you eat sashimi, it's like going to McDonald's, man. It's expensive. Okay? And it's all about the quality of the fish. Tensui imports 3 times a week. You know, most of your high-end Japanese restaurants import directly from Japan 3 times a week, and Skiji, yeah. And are the Japanese contributing to overfishing? Oh, you betcha. You know, yeah. Well, I would never want to see a list like this from them. It is, again, we talked about this earlier, it's such a critical part of their economy. They eat 200 kilos a year per person of fish, the Japanese. What right do we have as Americans telling them they got to stop eating bluefin tuna? Yeah, it's full of mercury, but I mean, how much are they eating it? You know what I'm saying? So it's complicated, and that's why I try to focus on the farm-raised salmon thing, the snowfish thing, things where there's really, pardon me from Norway, but there's really very little gray area. And the more I read about, you know, these fish, in that book, For Fish, in that book, World Without Fish, you know, it really focuses on, you know, baby steps. You know, Japan is willing to pay through the nose for seafood. All right? God bless them. God bless them. But they also take very, very good care of their fish. You know, so what's reaching the marketplace, there is no waste. They eat everything. And they eat a lot of seaweed. You know, so they do really eat the bounty of the ocean, and they eat what's caught. And for the bluefin tuna, I mean, they're paying tens of thousands of dollars for a fish, keeping fishermen alive.
So the snowfish in Japanese and Chinese restaurants in Bangkok, are they actually Chilean sea bass?
Yes.
They are?
Yes.
What's a comparable fish if I were to get rid of this addiction?
Japanese black cod.
Japanese black cod.
Yeah, Pacific black cod.
Japanese black cod.
All right. Escalar, something I'll start seeing more of here. You'll start physically seeing less snowfish more and more and more, because since it is so endangered, it's becoming more and more expensive. When I first started working with snowfish, it cost about 280 baht a kilo for a trunk. I was selling Patagonia toothfish in those days, back in the 80s. And I was selling it to most of the hotels here in Thailand. People love it, you know, Patagonia toothfish. And I was selling it for maybe 400 something baht a kilo, and you know, all of a sudden this fish shows up snowfish for like 200 something baht a kilo. But without the head and the fins and the tails, it's kind of hard to tell what it was. The chefs and me are looking at it and they're going, God damn, it's identical. Why is it so cheap? But that price now has gone up to where that same fish is over 900 baht a kilo now, making the fillet close to 1,200 baht a kilo. 150 gram portion is now 180 baht. Snowfish is becoming really expensive. All right, so we're probably going to be forced to stop eating it. I'm already selling more escalar and black cod here because of it. You know, so you will start seeing less snowfish. It's just getting way too expensive for the average restaurant to serve it now. So you will be seeing more of the Japanese black cod, jingara, escalar, and so we make a stink of farming salmon.
We're bang out of time, but perhaps you can stay on for a little bit for anyone to come and approach you. But I'll say thank you very much for wrap up our year. Actually, yes. The last talk of our year.
This is the last talk of the year. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. You're welcome to come by. You know, I'm at the seafood bar most nights. Call ahead, make sure I'm there, and come by, have a glass of wine with me, and I have a library on the shelf there. You know, come in anytime if you have any questions. I'll leave a couple of cards around. You can send me an email. Thank you all for your attention. I hope you take something away from you, away with you from this, and thanks for having me.